The night air in Chicago's South Side was heavy with tension. Red and blue lights painted the brick walls, sirens pulsed like a heartbeat. And Officer Alex Harris, a tall man with tired eyes and a square jaw, crouched low behind his patrol car. Somewhere in the shadows, a suspect had slipped into the maze of alleys. His team moved with precision, weapons drawn, every step calculated. Then, from the silence between shouts and radio static, came a sound that didn't belong, a fragile meow. Alex froze. The sound was thin, almost broken, but it sliced through the chaos sharper than any command. His breath misted in the cold as he scanned the darkness. At first, he thought his nerves were playing tricks on him, that stress had invented the noise. But then, from beneath a dented dumpster, two faint eyes glowed. Wide, green, unblinking, shimmering like tiny lanterns. The cat didn't move. It only watched, vulnerable, waiting. Stay on point. His sergeant barked from down the alley, snapping Alex back. The operation couldn't stall. A cornered suspect meant risk to lives. Yet Alex's gaze kept flicking to those eyes, to the quiver of a tiny body pressed against metal. The animal wasn't part of the mission, but its presence unsettled him, as if fate had laid another life in his path to test his judgment. A sudden crash of a garbage lid ahead drew shouts. The suspect was still close. The team surged forward, boots pounding against wet pavement. Alex's instincts urged him to follow, but the faint cry came again, weaker now, a sound that carried more desperation than threat. He clenched his jaw, torn between duty and something deeper, clawing at his chest. For a moment, his world split in two directions, the hunt and the helpless. The cat shifted, one paw trembling as it tried to step out from under the dumpster. Its fur, patchy and rough, clung in clumps like it had fought too many battles alone. It looked feral, yet its shiver betrayed fragility. Behind him, the police radios crackled with urgency. Ahead, danger. Beside him, innocence on the edge of disappearing. Alex lowered his weapon slightly, eyes narrowing. He wasn't a rookie. Years on the force had hardened him, taught him to prioritize, to push aside distractions. But there was something about that cat. The way it refused to run, the way it locked eyes with him, almost asking. The sounds of pursuit faded into the distance, but in that narrow pocket of the alley, time felt suspended. A car engine revved nearby, rattling the walls. The cat startled, pressing itself flat, tail twitching in fear. Alex felt the knot in his chest tighten. He remembered a night long ago, a different street, when he had been powerless to protect something fragile. The memory seared, and suddenly, the choice didn't feel like a choice at all. As he crouched closer, gravel digging into his knee, the cat hissed low, its tiny body trying to mask its weakness with defiance. Alex whispered softly, not words meant for suspects, but words meant to soothe. His gloved hand hovered inches away, uncertain whether this fragile creature would claw or collapse. The cat's eyes widened, torn between trust and fear. In that fragile silence, Alex realized the operation wasn't the only thing hanging in the balance tonight. The alley stretched ahead like a throat-swallowing sound, muffling the shouting officers in the distance. Alex leaned lower, his shadow stretching toward the trembling cat. The air reeked of damp garbage and oil, sharp enough to sting his nose. He whispered again, his voice calm, almost fragile. The cat's ears flicked, torn between flight and surrender. For a heartbeat, its chest stopped trembling, as if listening. Then sudden movement. From the far end of the alley, a figure burst into sight, the suspect sprinting hard, desperate to escape. His footsteps splashed through puddles, the metallic click of something in his hand sending a surge of adrenaline through Alex's veins. He had seconds to react. Training screamed at him to raise his weapon. Yet, in the corner of his vision, the cat staggered into the open, directly in the suspect's path. "Move!" Alex barked instinctively, not to his team but to the creature at his feet. The suspect stumbled, eyes darting at the sudden flash of fur. The distraction lasted less than a blink, but it was enough. The man lost his rhythm, tripping over the slick pavement. Officers from the other side surged in, tackling him to the ground with a violent thud. Shouts, curses, and the metallic rattle of handcuffs filled the air. Alex should have run forward to assist, to help secure the scene, but his knees remained bent, his gaze fixed on the cat. It had stopped in the middle of the alley, tiny chest heaving, fur bristling in defiance. As if unaware of the danger it had just wandered into, it turned back toward Alex, eyes still locked, glowing with something that didn't look like fear anymore. Something closer to demand. One officer glanced his way. "You good, Harris?" The words were sharp, hurried. Alex nodded, raising a hand without breaking his stare from the animal. The others dragged the suspect out, their voices echoing until only silence remained again. The alley felt suddenly cavernous, echoing only with Alex's shallow breaths and the faint drip of water down the brick walls. The mission was done. Yet Alex knew his night wasn't. He stepped forward, boots crunching glass, until he was only inches away. The cat hissed again, its voice ragged, scraping the night like torn metal. Alex removed his glove slowly, exposing rough skin hardened by years of patrols. The cold bit at his fingers, but his hand stayed steady, extended between them like a fragile bridge. The cat lowered its head, sniffed the air, and trembled so violently Alex thought it might collapse. Then, a sound tore through the quiet. Not a meow this time, but a pitiful rasp, a sound too weak for defiance. It was the sound of exhaustion, of something that had fought too long to survive. Alex's chest tightened. He saw the scars along its legs, the patchy fur revealing ribs beneath, the limp in its back paw. This wasn't just a stray. This was a survivor that had been cornered by life itself. Before he could speak, a noise from behind startled them both. A sudden metallic clang as an officer slammed the trunk of a squad car shut. The cat bolted, vanishing under the dumpster again, as if their fragile connection had never existed. Alex's hand hung in the air, empty. He exhaled slowly, the alley once again silent, but his heart refused to quiet. Somewhere under the rusted metal, two green eyes still watched him, daring him not to walk away. The alley emptied slowly as the squad cars rolled away, their engines rumbling into the night. Red and blue light faded into distance, leaving only the faint glow of a street lamp that flickered against cracked brick. Alex lingered, his breath turning to mist in the cold, his body caught between duty and something he couldn't name. Beneath the dumpster, the cat's eyes still glimmered, unblinking, silent, watching. Alex crouched lower, pressing his palm flat against the damp pavement, letting his body language soften. His voice dropped to a whisper, steady but gentle. "It's all right. You're safe now." The words felt foreign on his tongue, the kind of thing he hadn't spoken in years, but the cat's ears twitched. A pause. Then a faint shuffle of paws against grit, as if the animal was testing whether to believe him. A gust of wind swept down the alley, carrying the sharp bite of smoke from a nearby chimney. The cat sneezed, a fragile sound, and stepped half an inch into the light. Its fur caught the glow, matted, streaked with dirt, yet unmistakably soft beneath the scars. Alex reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a protein bar, tearing it open with steady fingers. The smell of peanuts filled the air. He broke off a small piece, laying it on the ground between them. For a long, tense moment, nothing happened. The cat stared, nose twitching but refused to move. Then came the scrape of claws against metal, a nervous shift backward. Alex's heart sank, but before he could retreat, the animal lunged forward, snatching the crumb with desperate speed. It devoured the morsel in 2 quick bites, then hissed, as if ashamed of its own hunger. Alex couldn't help but let out a dry, quiet laugh. That fragile connection was shattered again by a sudden noise. A trash can toppled farther down the alley, crashing loud enough to echo like thunder. Alex spun instinctively, hand near his holster, adrenaline spiking. A stray dog darted out of the shadows, ribs sharp under its skin, teeth bared not at him but at the cat. It had smelled the food, and hunger made it bold. The cat arched its back, fur standing on end, a raw, broken hiss ripping from its throat. Alex's pulse roared in his ears. He knew the dog was no real threat to him, but to the fragile creature under that dumpster, it was death itself. Without thinking, he surged forward, boots slamming the ground, his voice deep and commanding. "Get out." The dog yelped at the sudden force of sound and stomp of his foot, retreating into the dark with a whimper. Silence rushed back, heavy as stone. When Alex turned again, the cat was still crouched low, trembling harder now, tail lashing like a whip. It had seen his outburst, his sudden violence, and for a moment, it wasn't sure if the danger was gone, or if he was part of it. Alex froze, lifting both hands slowly, palms open, showing the animal he meant no harm. His breath came ragged, but his eyes never left its fragile frame. The cat crept forward, paw by paw, as though caught between instinct and something braver. It stopped just shy of the food he'd left, eyes glimmering with mistrust and need. Alex's knees ached from crouching, but he didn't move, didn't blink. He let the silence carry his intent. The alley no longer smelled of smoke or oil. To him, it smelled only of choice. A man and a broken animal, suspended in the fragile space between fear and trust. The night had grown quieter, the kind of silence that feels almost fragile, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Alex stayed kneeling on the cold pavement, his fingers numb, his knees screaming. Still, he didn't move. The cat edged closer, nose twitching toward the faint crumbs left between them. Each step it took sounded louder, in his mind, than the echo of boots or the slam of squad car doors. Finally, it reached the food again, eating slower this time, pausing to glance up at him as if waiting for a sign. Alex lowered his hand gently, letting it rest flat against the pavement, a bridge that didn't force, only offered. The cat froze. For 3 long seconds, nothing stirred but the flicker of the streetlight above. Then, cautiously, its head dipped and its whiskers brushed the rough skin of his palm. The touch was so light Alex barely felt it, but it sent a shock through him. Not of fear, but of recognition. The animal wasn't just taking food, it was testing trust. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, his chest loosening for the first time that night. He whispered again, voice breaking into something tender. "You're not alone anymore." The cat pressed its cheek against his hand, rubbing once before retreating. Its eyes no longer glowed with suspicion, but with something softer, fragile yet unyielding, acceptance. For the first time, Alex noticed how small it really was. Beneath the dirt and scars, it looked barely more than a skeleton wrapped in fur. Yet inside it burned a will to live stronger than anything he'd seen all evening. A breeze carried the faint hum of traffic from the main street. Life was moving on without him, but Alex stayed, letting the moment linger. His radio crackled faintly at his side, a voice calling his name, demanding an update. He ignored it, eyes fixed on the creature now curled in the shadow of the dumpster, but closer to him than it had ever dared before. Slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled free a clean cloth from his kit. He laid it on the ground beside his hand, a small offering, a soft space between concrete and bone. The cat eyed it then, with hesitant grace, stepped onto the fabric and lowered itself. Its body trembled, but not from fear this time, from surrender. A fragile surrender given to him. Alex felt his throat tighten, a sting behind his eyes he refused to blink away. He had chased danger tonight, had faced chaos and adrenaline, but the real victory was here, in the silence of a forgotten alley, with a creature that had no reason to trust and yet had chosen to. He slid his other hand gently, slowly, until it rested against its back. The cat didn't flinch. Instead, it let out a sound, not a hiss, not a cry, but a soft, broken purr that rattled against his fingertips. As dawn threatened the edge of the horizon, Alex lifted the cloth with the cat nestled inside. Its eyes half closed, exhaustion finally winning. For the first time in years, he smiled without effort. The operation was over, but the night had given him something far greater than an arrest. It had given him a fragile life that had chosen him. And as he walked back toward the squad car, the small weight in his arms felt heavier than any badge he'd ever worn.